as we say Shalom Aleichem and Lechem Shalom, peace be unto you, and welcome to the Sunday's edition of our pre-session teleconference Bible class session that is also celestial. We brought to you this past week part one of A Measure of Wheat for a Penny. And tonight we're going to bring to you part two, along with other testimonies that we have for you. Meanwhile, we'd like to thank you for joining us and clicking onto this video as we once again say Lechem Shalom and peace be unto you, and welcome to this Sunday's edition of our pre-session. Again, we are broadcasting live to the world again tonight on social medias, Facebook, as well as YouTube. This is going to be downloaded to Facebook and Twitter as we come via live stream YouTube, as we promised to continue from where we left off at on Wednesday night in part one. And to those of you who are in attendance again tonight, we would like to pray and hope that you stay on with us tonight as you were doing last Sunday night. And if you do, I would like to personally welcome you back. If you were with us last Sunday night, and all others that has joined us in care of our posted invitations, I say welcome and thank you for joining us. Even if you tuned in, you just happened to tune in, or you called in as a result of others who invited you verbally or by written invitation for you to call in, or even if you were on Facebook or YouTube and you just saw the video or the message on the monitor to let you know that we are now live again tonight. And for those who are viewing this or watching this live on YouTube, then we are welcoming you to call into our telephone line, our conference line. That number is 831-221-6177. Again, that's 831-221-6177. Just in case for some strange reason we lose this video feed of our live stream YouTube. So call into that number. You can still call in and you can watch the video at the same time on YouTube. Now, with that said, we welcome you to the only series of teleconferences and Bible class sessions that were ever in existence, or there ever was. In fact, let's make this absolutely personal and official. As I say again, Shalom Aleichem to all the children of Yudawavhe, and a very special Lechem Shalom to the King's tribe, who are identified today in the King James Version Holy Bibles, the book called First Chronicles of the Old Testament, in chapter 28 and verse 4. That verse makes it official and plain to read that it is the tribe called Judah of the 12 tribes of Israel that was chosen by the God of the Hebrew Israelites, Yudawavhe, who chose Judah to be the ruler, the king, and the queens, the king and the queens of the other 11 tribes. However, Yehuda or Judah are now being called Yehuda Yahweh today, given their new name, evenly by their true name. And so are the rest of the 11 tribes, the children of Yudawavhe, that are now being called Yishwa Yahweh today. So, shalom to ye all. Moreover, Azan Shema She'erish Yesh Azan Shema. Ye, Yehuda, Yehuda Yahweh, Yaakov, and Yishra Yahweh. Toda, Rabah Kara, Bo El Slon Elohim, Yudhed Wavhe, Azan Slon Elohim, Yudhed Wavhe, Nathan, eighth. And that is Hebrew, your native language. And translated into English, we said, peace be unto you, peace be unto ye. Hear, hearken to the remainder, the remnant. Hear, hearken ye the remainder that there is of Yehuda Yahweh, Jacob, Yaakov, and Yishra Yahweh, Israel. Thank you for calling. You are welcomed to come to your God, Yudawahhe, also known as Yahweh. In English, hear, hearken to your God, Yudawahhe. The time is come. Now, with that said, and as a reminder, all of our teleconferences and telesessions are based on the fulfillment of prophecies that were recorded by all of the Hebrew servants of Yudawahhe, also known as Hebrew prophets. And all these prophecies are now read in the Karet HaTorah, the Karet HaTorah of Mount Sinai, also known as the Torah of Mount Sinai. The Karet HaTorah of Mount Sinai, also known as the Tabiblia, where these prophecies are printed today, found printed, of several nations of Europe. The Agai Graphi of Greece, the Babel of Russia, the Shangxing of China, the Saisho of Japan, the Kanawai of Hawaii, the Songzhong of both North and South Korea, also the Bibla of Albania, just to name a few of those foreign nations. And of course, we have the King James Version Holy Bible of England, Great Britain, the UK, just to name that particular Bible that stands out above all, the most dominant language today of earth, English. Praise welfare. And there are others, about 400 more other languages. Keeping in mind that the King James Version Holy Bible is the most popular and authentic in care of the 1611's authorized edition. And it is from that King James Version Holy Bible that we use today as Hebrew Israelites who are over in the United States of America today, a tribe called Judah. It is that Bible that we use because it was our God, our Yudhid-Wavhe, the God of the Hebrews, who used it as he dwelt here with us in the flesh for 72 years on earth, known to the world today as Yahweh, Ben Yahweh. That is the Bible that he used, and he raised us up on that Bible. He raised me up on that Bible, the one that he insists that we use today, which is the closest to the scrolls that were transliterated from the original Hebrew scrolls that were transliterated into several languages. We'll get to it in a few moments to share that with you. But that is the Bible that we use today to continue to share and disclose as many of those prophecies that were handwritten by the prophets as we can, even with the whole world that we have on our agenda again tonight. But before we do, we would like to take this opening moment to say once again, welcome to ye that are the chosen children and the elect of Yudhid-Wavhe, the God of the Hebrews, the God of the Israelites. as we invited ye to join us this day, which is the third and final day of the Trinity. We also say Todah, Ratzah, Shema, Shalonu, Kara in Hebrew. Again, Todah, Ratzah, Shema, Shalanu, Kara in Hebrew. Again, with our native tongue, our native language. Though in English translation, I said, thank you for obeying our invitation. Todah. Todah for join us on this third Sunday, the third Sunday evening of June, the 16th day of 2019. There's some only recognize this date and this day as they have this weekend as what they call, quote, Father's Day, end quote. And that's what this country called the United States, this nation's government. That's what they have come to as recognizing their father, their biological father or daddy, only one day out of the year. That means the other, what they have, see, they have in their calendar 365 days. That means they extended 5 days back in the 9th century to continue to rule the world. So they added 5 days onto the original 360 days. It's only 30 days in 12 months. Of 12 months, there are 30 days in 12 months of the solar calendar that equals a perfect 360 circle, a cycle, 360. But the Romans, with their evil and deceiving selves, added 5 days onto that calendar. Now, if you look in the dictionary of any month, especially if you start around September, if you look up September, for example, in your dictionary, you will see that it has 2 definitions. And probably the latter definition would be from the original Roman calendar that they recognized that month as the 7th month. The 7th month, septuplets of the angels, septuplets. And it was updated after the 9th century to the 9th month, September. See, sept is 7. So they did at one time recognize the solar calendar as 360 days a year, that they want to get above the God of the Hebrews, so they added 5 days. They can never do that. So since they added 365 to their calendar, they took one day of the 365 for the day, Father's Day, and then they took one from May to make it Mother's Day. They recognize their parents only one day of the year. One day they recognize their mother in May and their father in June. And I assure you that the other 364 days, they don't even recognize their parents, the mother nor the father. Well, they may see them, but they don't recognize them. I guarantee you they don't say Happy Mother's Day in April or November, for example, November 15th, just to pick one day of the middle of the month. I guarantee you no one says Happy Mother's Day today, November 15th. If you did, your mother look at you like you're out of your mind. What you mean, Happy Mother's Day? And she'll even tell you, that's not until May. Oh, that's gone. That's what the world is today. That's what they recognize today as their parents, how they appreciate their mother and their father. This is true. You know I'm speaking the truth. Anyway, nonetheless, I still thank you for tuning into our pre-session that's numbered as 63. That continues from Wednesday's edition that was numbered as 62, from number 1 that started this series of pre-sessions and their fulfillments back in October of last year, 2018. And as we continue on tonight from this past Wednesday night's pre-session. Let me at this time remind you to please take out your study tools. As we just mentioned, the King James Version Holy Bible should be your first study tool in hand. And you have a Strong's Concordance. If you have one, grab that. We're going to refer to some references out of that book, that concordance that's going to take you to original Hebrew and Greek words, the Hebrew lexicon and the Greek's lexicon, originals before they were transliterated. And if you have a encyclopedia, a set of encyclopedias, or a dictionary or two, a collegiate dictionary, or an unabridged dictionary by Webster, then please take out your dictionary. We're going to be giving you a few words that we're going to insist that you look up and define these words for yourself to see the subject of truth that they are being referred to as a word or definition. And most importantly, you're going to need something to write with, a writing utensil. We're going to have another writing exercise tonight toward the end of our pre-session tonight. Besides, how are you going to take notes? How are you going to write down the words to look in your dictionaries if you don't write them down on something, a notepad? So take out a notepad or some paper. Take notes. As we also remind you once again that our motto is one God, one mind, one love, and one action. That's our motto, the Celestial Lodge, the nation of Utuape. We're also all for one and one for all. We're also one for all and all for one. All for one and one for all. And of course, we want for our own people, our own nation of Hebrew Israelites. But we want for ourselves. That includes a bowl that we have been blessed with that was hidden in the wilderness for 40 years. That's full of soup. And we're now offering you half of that bowl of our soup. But we cannot pour this soup into your hands. That's folded, as if you're going to drink water from a lake. You're going to need a bowl to drink this water in this manner, to be poured into your bowl. If you don't have a bowl, then use a cup. If you use a cup, I assure you that your cup is going to run over. Though mercy and goodness will follow you with that cup wherever you go. So grab hold to something, a bowl. If you don't know where that bowl is, then look up. Look up in your mind. Look in the mirror, look up. Your head is shaped just like a bowl turned upside down, where your mouth is and your ears. So grab your bowl and pay attention tonight. Praise you, Wafe. Now, with that said, as you have your study too, you have your Bible. Praise Wafe. Let me also remind you in this planet, again tonight, called Earth, that you are under the submission to the solar time. Regardless of what the Romans did in the 9th century, you are still under the submission and subjection to the solar time of Utuape, which is governed by the sun, sunlight, the sun period of the universe. And this is being recognized by the Celestial Lodge this day. It's not, we do not recognize this day as Father's Day. Our Father's Day is every day. We call him Ab in Hebrew, Aleph Beth. Ab in Hebrew is Father. His day is every day to us. He's also our mother. Every day. He's our parent. We have one parent, our Utuape. And we recognize this day as the evening and the morning of the ninth day of the 4th month of our solar calendar. So make a note. It's also known as the solar year, recognized as 6022. 6022. That's 6022 years from Genesis chapter 4, verse 7, when Cain, the son of Lucifer, or Hillel, the devil, the serpent, was given his chance to rule the world, if he can be righteous and do it right, he was given 6,000 years. From Genesis chapter 4 and verse 7, you can read that. But of course, we can see evidence today that he's failed. He couldn't do it. So we're in the process now of taking this earth that you call world back from Cain and his devils and serpent, his daddy. We're in the process of taking it back. Now you can be fooled by them. You can watch them on television. They look happy and getting married and marrying princesses and a whale and prince of Wales and smiling and have all kinds of social media's attention, eating $3,000-$4,000 plates of dinner at a table, being served by servants dressed nice. The servants are dressed nicer than those who work in executive offices. And they look so happy riding around in their limousines, Rolls Royces, their multi-million-dollar yachts on the high seas. And they look happy, hosting parties and dinners, letting everybody in as they keep some out, or they let some in and keep everybody else out. But they look happy. Well, I know thy poverty, Yehuda Yahweh. Now I know thy pain, but thou art rich. I also know the blasphemy of them who call themselves Jews and are not. They think you think they're happy too, and they think they're happy too. But they are not you, ye. They are not the true Yehudites. They are the synagogue of Satan. They are the sin of Gog. G-O-G. The sin of Gog. And you look that up. And when you look up sin, what Gog did as a sin, then you find his people who call themselves Jews today and are not, but do lie. And soon we're going to have them to come to worship before thy feet. Why do you think I'm on this live stream on YouTube and sometimes on Facebook? So they can see me, that I'm here. Even though they mourn to see me here, they mourn, they wail and mourn at me, at my presence, because they do not want me to come back today. Why? Because I'm crashing their parties. I'm destroying their parties and their fun on their yachts and palaces of our palaces that they have treaded in and trespassed in. Praise Yahweh, for their end is come. It's going to be official soon. In the meantime, and in essence of today, as I mentioned earlier, this evening is also known as Sunday evening, June 16th, 2019 of their calendar, 2019th year, the 2019th year from the time that the Christ was crucified and taken up in a spacecraft from a mountain 2019 years ago. It was taken up by a ship, what they call a UFO. Praise Yahweh. And it was promised by two men who were wearing white apparel. As some were looking up at the ship go up, they were astonished. They were shocked to see such a sight. But they were promised that the same Christ that they saw go up would come back in like manner as he was seen, as he walked this planet over 2020 years ago. Praise Yahweh. And this was mentioned so that it would be on record as a reminder, because this is being recorded as we continue to keep our records on video and audio. In addition, you who are in attendance tonight, maybe some has just joined us and will stay in attendance tonight, the ye and you are my witnesses of this day. that are witnessing the fulfillment of one of those prophecies that we just mentioned a few moments ago, especially one that features this gospel of the kingdom of Yudhawah that was originally worded by the Christ of Yudhawah in Hebrew, again, over 2,020 years ago, that would be preached today in all the world, to all nations of the world. And that can only be done by satellite at one time, even if it's different time zones, they still see him and preach and taught, teach all nations. But that now reads in the English print today, the book called Matthew of the King James Version Holy Bible, Matthew, in chapter 24 and verse 14. So you can make a note and read that on your own. Moreover, as we get started now, if I hadn't done so, let's now introduce your host that you see right now in the vision, and whose voice, or the voice that you hear, if you cannot see, if you're not on YouTube, that you hear right now on your phone. I'm going to introduce the host by my celestial name, which is Mem Yud Kaf Yudid Wavhe. That's Hebrew. That's 5 Hebrew characters or symbols, and 2 of the 5 are positioned twice, as in 2 sets of twins. And each angel, they're also angels that make 7. Each one is an angel that carries inside of his soul a seal, 7 seals, among other things. 7 spirits, 7 eyes, 7 trumpets, all in one. 7 lamps, 7 pipes to the 7 lamps, 7 candlesticks, golden. All of those are being carried by those 7 angels in one soul. I'm also being called Mika Yahweh in English. This is the only name in existence. No one else has this name, period. Nowhere. You can search, you can send your space probes from Houston, Texas, or from Cape Canaveral of Florida and Cocoa Beach, Florida. You can send up rockets and space probes like one you trying to get to Mars, or you claim you landed on Mars. I haven't seen it. But if you go ahead and send your search vehicles out, you can search all the planets, those that you have not even discovered yet. And you will not find another Mem Yud Kaf Yudhawah or Mika Yahweh. I'm the only one. Just as there is one God, there's only one God. My Father, Yudhawah. Just like there's only one of him, there's only one of me with the name. Even without the name. I don't have to be called Mika Yahweh or Mem Yud Kaf Yudhawah. I can be called Mika. I've also been called Michael. They changed that to even Michael, appellation, Michael, Mikael. That means who is like God. And you're still not going to find another, whatever they call me. You're not going to find another one. Some even put together Melchizedek. They put that together too. Some people said Yahshua, the son of Nun. Why? Because he's a son of Yudhawah. But whatever they call me, you're not going to find another. But with that said, I think you get the picture now of that intro. So let's continue from where we left off at on this past Wednesday night, as promised. Part 1, as promised. We're going to go now to part 2 of A Measure of Wheat for a Penny. That's found in Revelation chapter 6 and verse 6. As this telesession, this pre-session, features the book called Revelation, as we started this series of loosing the 7 seals from chapter 1 and verse 1. So let us start at that point again tonight. at this time, just as we did on Wednesday night and the past 5 weeks from this date, this day, Sunday, that also features Joel chapter 2 and all 32 verses of that chapter. That also subtopics the word that we'd introduced about 5 Sundays ago, known as stud, S-T-U-D. So let us show you, since we mentioned that, let us shew you that for the sake of loosing the third, fifth, and seventh seals, that's 3 seals instead of that one word that was hiding and protecting that one word, S-T-U-D, again tonight. So turn to the book that's called Esther of the Old Testament, chapter 8, Esther chapter 8. We're going to read verse 10. Now, we pray that you have a King James Version Bible, sort of like this. You see, I even have markers and take notes. I have notes on the back of my paper. Keep markers in my Bible. So grab hold to a Bible like this, King James Version, Keyword Study Bible. I have mine in front of me. So grab hold to your Bible as we read now Esther chapter 8. We're going to read verse 10. Read with us as I quote. That says, and he wrote in the king Eshbarosh name. Where'd that come from? What kind of name is that? Eshbarosh. We got to pause here for a moment to explain that. So if you will, let me point out to you that the pronoun he that was read here so far, he that's read in this verse, the second word he, the pronoun he, who wrote on this king's name was a little Yehudite man of the tribe called Judah, Yehuda. This is the he. This is that he, because we start at verse 10. When you read from verse 1, you discover that this he is a Yehudite man from the tribe called Judah, whose name was Mordecai. That was introduced up in verse 7, actually. Should you care to read that on your own. Now, also know this, that this name that you see here, this name of a certain king of Persia, that is read as Ahasuerus, is found in the King James Version of the Bible 31 times. 31. However, 30 of those 31 times is in this book called Esther. And the other one is found in the book called Daniel. You can make a note of that. We're going to share that with you maybe in the future. But for now, however, in this book and subject, this name, Ahasuerus, bears the meaning of, and I quote, I will be silent and poor, end quote. Now that means that you must not look at the name of this king, but look at this king of Persia, as being a king who was of very few words, like hardly said anything. It was also poor-minded. Now, we brought this to your attention for a reason that we'll share that reason with you later, especially that involves a certain pen that this little Hebrew man wrote with. But for now, as we continue to see what he did with what he wrote to Judah, he was writing to Judah. That goes on to say in verse 10, and sealed it with the king's ring, and sent letters by posts on horseback, and riders of mules, camels, and young dromedaries, or dromedaries. This is an English word. They created it. They made it up. Anyway, this dromedary, or dromedaries in plural, represents the male gender of a stud. It represents the male gender of a stud, that is, of a horse. That's also known to sometimes be dubious, like, stupid, like an ass. But most importantly, this young dromedary is the same, all these dromedaries are the same as a stud, S-T-U-D. In fact, and to prove it, you can do this assignment on your own as like homework, because you are in class. So here's a homework assignment. Go online if you don't have this Bible, and you can see how this very same verse reads in another Bible called the ESV Bible. The ESV Bible, that means English Standard Version Bible. And currently this very same book called Esther in chapter 8. Now I'm going to read it. Now I found that Bible. I'm going to read the same book, chapter, and verse of Esther. And here's how that verse reads in that Bible. Quote, and he wrote in the name of King Esheshborosh, and sealed it with the king's signet ring. Then he sent the letters by mounted couriers riding on swift horses that were used in the king's service, bred from the royal stud, S-T-U-D, period, end quote. And this is the very same stud, S-T-U-D, the subtopics in Joel chapter 2 and verse 4 that we'd introduced about 5 Sundays ago, along with another word that we have featured and revealed this past week, known as Gin, G-I-N, Gin. As many heard that testimony revelation during Wednesday night's pre-session, this past Wednesday, and how that word fits into Matthew chapter 20 and Amos chapter 3, especially Matthew chapter 20 and verses 1, 2, and 3. Now, tonight, and during this video, we are going to loose this stud, S-T-U-D, and reveal how this particular stud was sealed with the third seal, and how it fits in the third seal that was sealing a measure of wheat for a penny. That's found in Revelation chapter 6, verse 5. It's where the stud is found. In verse 5, it's being called a black horse. And you're also going to see in verse 6 of Revelation chapter 6, a measure of wheat for a penny. Also 3 measures of barley for a penny. Now, we're not going to go into the 3 measures of barley for a penny tonight. We don't have that kind of scheduled time. We'll do that in another part. But for now, we're going to focus on a measure of wheat for a penny, part 2. So pay attention. As we also remind you that this stud, S-T-U-D, of Esther chapter 8, verse 10, is now submitting to the 4th seal, just as well as the 3rd seal, just like how the Gin, G-I-N, submitted to the 7th seal when it was opened and then loosed 6 weeks ago, and loosed this past Wednesday night again. They're also part of the 7 angels that signifies those seven seals that we mentioned a few moments ago. Each angel its own seal. And all seven seals can only be loosed, can only be opened and loosed by the lion of the tribe called Judah. Judah is a euphemism of Yehuda, according to Revelation chapter 5 and verse 5. So let's read that for the sake of confirmation and clarity. Let's read that. So turn to your book called Revelation in your Bible, King James Version, and let us take a look. Let's take a look at Revelation chapter 5. Revelation chapter 5. And let's read beginning at verse 1. And that says, as I quote, verbatim, I'm going to quote this verbatim, word for word. And I saw in the right hand of him that sat on the throne a book written within and on the backside, sealed with seven seals. End quote. Now I'm going to read that again, and I'm praying that you recognize or notice something that's being done during my reading. So I'm going to read that again, praying that you're reading the same way. So I'm going to read that again, as I quote. And I saw in the right hand of him that sat on the throne a book written within and on the backside, sealed with seven seals. Period. End quote. Now, as we pause here before we go to verse 2, if we pause here in verse 1 for a minute or a few minutes before we read verse 2, let us do something that we have never did before. We're going to do something that we never did before. When we'd read this verse in the past, at least for 39 years now, for 39 years, that was brought to our attention by our God, the mighty God, Yahweh, at that time known only to us as Ak Moshe, or Moses Israel, who's now become known to many as, quote, Yahweh ben Yahweh, end quote. He had us to read this verse all the way back around 1980, 39 years ago now. So what we're going to do tonight, for the first time since then, we're going to disclose more mysteries of this verse that are still sealed, at least until now. They're going to be loosed. They're also hidden. They were hidden in these cryptos that were concealed by the only comma that was placed in this verse during and after the English's translation or transliteration. Did you hear what I said? I pray that you heard what I said. Some said no. They didn't hear it. We told you to pay attention. Okay. I may have caught some off guard. So let me say that again. I'm going to say that again now. I'm going to repeat it. So hang in there and listen again. I said, before we read verse 2 of Revelation chapter 5, let us do something that we have never done before when we read this verse in the past for years, at least since 1980, by disclosing more mysteries of this verse that are hidden in this alleged vision of Yochanan that he saw on a television monitor in a celestial spacecraft or spaceship that NORAD, the United States government's Air Force, And Canada, therefore, is called today UFOs. And the Bible is also known as a spirit, just like they named one of their jets, airliners, Spirit Airlines. Well, that's where they get it from. And then after we do that, after that was shown to Yochanan, Yochanan originally wrote what he saw in Hebraic. He didn't write in no other idiom. He wrote in Hebraic, which is of the Hebrew idiom. Hebrew. Those scrolls then later fell into the hands of the Greeks. But Yohanan wrote originally in Hebraic, the Hebrews idiom. It later fell into the hands of the Greeks, who wrote in the Koine Greek manuscript. That's right, they wrote in the Koine Greek manuscript, Koine manuscript, that is of the Alexandrian dialect. And then when they were done, they titled the results of their scrolls, quote, the Apocalypsis, end quote. That means, of course, unveiling. But they could not unveil it. They could not unveil it. They could not unveil what was translated for them and to them by a few of those Hebrew Israelite traders of our nation, of the tribe called Dan. So then, after that, in the 16th century, since they couldn't unveil it, they tried the sealed. The Greeks, Apocalypsis, those scrolls, they then fell into the hands of a German monk named, quote, Martin Luther, end quote. Martin Luther, a white boy, and my people today are falling out head over heels because some white boy's name that was given to a black slave, at the time a Negro slave, the son of a great grandson of a Negro slave owner who had the name Martin Luther, gave him king. And here's where the name comes from. Martin Luther, the German monk. Also, he was the creator of the Lutherans. Martin Luther, the Lutherans. And he was also of those 95 theses that he put in a large catechism. And when he put that in the catechism in Canterbury and let the whole town read his thesis, they got upset after seeing that Martin Luther translated the Apocalypsis into the German vernacular instead of Greek or Latin, where he placed his thesis in, who then released them to the English theologians in 1530, the year 1530. But that was not until after Martin Luther, the monk, redacted what he'd copied from the Greeks. He redacted most of it, if not all. Are you hearing me? I pray that you're hearing this. If not, let me say it again. I said a German monk named Martin Luther of the 15th century, who was born from a jackal of a German town of Germany called Eisleben, that is situated just 274.4 miles north of Karlstadt, also of Germany. where another white German fellow by the name of Frederick Trump was born in 1869, but subsequently died here in the United States of America at age 49 in 1918 in Queens, New York, of New York, who also, by the way, just happened to have been the father of one Frederick Christ Trump and grandfather of one Donald John Trump Sr. Sort of like the same ancestor of a German Klansman tribe of men that started during the same time when Martin Luther, who was ordained to the priesthood of Europe in 1507, the year 1507. Right, Donald? I'm going to send you a copy of this, Donald, old boy. I'm going to send you a copy of this so you can confirm that what I'm speaking is the truth. You know that, even as your mother gave you a Bible when you just turned 9. She gave you a red Bible, right? She gave you that Bible for a reason. She know who you is that came out of her womb. Is that part of the reason why your father was given the middle name known today as Christ? Christ. We talk about some God rest his soul. No, he won't. That also, see, that Christ, the middle name of your father, your daddy. Happy Father's Day, by the way. See, Christ, Christ, that was given to your father at birth, also happens to be the maiden name of your grandmother, right? And why Martin Luther, who was one of your German Klansmen, that also became a German inspectoral, right? I said Martin Luther became a German inspectoral that is defined as a German official examiner who inspected, like a inspectorial, who examines something in order to judge its quality or compliance with rules or the law. Right? Right. And because Martin Luther was a German inspectorial, he was an inspectoral. He tried to be an inspectorial, but he didn't have the mind to do that. His intellect was not allowing him. He was recondite to many of the things that were shown. So he didn't get the AL. He didn't get all. He only got the spectora. But even those that he got and he read, he redacted the apocalypses of the Greeks. You know I'm speaking the truth. Who then copied the original scrolls as close as they could have been translated for them by those 7 Hebrew Israelite elders of Dan. Right? Just like how the Robert Muller's report of today. I said just like how the Robert Mueller's report of today was redacted by your United States Attorney General that you appointed, that's known today as William Barr. Now, for those who may not know what the word redacted means, spelled for those taking notes from left to right, REDACTED, redacted. We told you to get a dictionary earlier. If you don't have one, then here's our definition of our dictionary, and in most English dictionaries, that defines this word redacted as a book or documents that is read by someone who will take the original of that book or documents and then edit that book or documents or revise something in preparation for publication that would then become formally classified documents that were redacted before release, as Barr did the Mueller's report, Robert Mueller's report, in order to protect still confidential material. Right? You want to know why they mourn when they see me? Why it was promised that they would mourn at me when they see me? Because I come with the truth. You can call me a celestial snitch to the devils of the devils, right? I am a celestial snitch of the devils with a loud voice. And as this Martin Luther, the German monk, did to the Greeks' apocalypse, that English theologian, the English theologians, that group, just as Martin Luther did, redacted the apocalypses of the Greeks. Then the English theologians of King James I, they committed the same act of redacting the translations of Martin Luther during their own process of translating the same book called Revelation today. Why? Because they could not understand it or comprehend it. It became recondite to their minds. Recondite, Recondite, recondite. Look that up. Write it down. Look it up. Recondite. It's not known. It's confusing to them. That's what the definition means in part. So they did that as an attempt to deceive the world. They redacted the book called Revelation as an attempt to deceive the whole world, just like it says in Revelation chapter 12, verse 9, into their own religion of their own God called Ezus. And we cleared that up a few sessions ago, what that means. Or Jesus, Jesus. We cleared that up, what that means in English, of symbols, that he's here with us. I am here with us. And by doing so, they'd also place several punctuation marks as they redacted several of their punctuation marks in all 404 verses, and 22 chapters of this book called Revelation, of which several, or almost all of those 404 verses begins with their own conjunction known as and, A-N-D. When you look at a few chapters, every chapter, every verse, just about every verse of the chapter begins with and, A-N-D. Now you should want to know why they've done that. You read it, but some, don't question it. How can a prophetical verse of prophecy, cryptic, prophetic cryptograms, how can it begin with and, a conjunction of the English idiom known as and, of the punctuation marks, comma, colon, semicolon? Why? It's been redacted. They're trying to keep things hidden that they cannot. How are you going to keep something hidden from somebody you don't know what it means? You're hiding it from yourself. What they did was they hid their ignorance. They tried to hide their ignorance in recondite minds. But almost all those verses begins with their conjunction known as and. That is a sure indication of what they translated and placed in those verses. That begins with and, A-N-D, that came from the Old Testament, that are related to the Christ, also known as the Son of Yahweh, and or the Son of Man. There are only 3 of his appellations that are found printed by them in this book called Revelation, of who is like Yahweh. That's what his name means, who is like Yahweh. And all three appellations bears the same message of the seven angels, of which all seven angels are the keepers of the cryptic seals and more prophecies that became subjected to their lies of the devils that were hidden by the only comma that was placed in the English's translation of chapter 5 and verse 1. Only one comma. Why? Told you earlier when I was reading, I pray that you can hear what's going on. Or did you hear what I said? I pray that you heard me. If not, and I don't mind repeating it again. So let me say that again. I know this is recorded, but you can rewind it as you play the video. But I said live right now that there's only one comma, one, that's found in this verse, 1 of Revelation chapter 5, that precedes the right hand that is attached to the pronoun that is read as him. In other words, this him, H-I-M, pronoun, is the very same one likened to the Son of Man that sat upon a mass of people wearing all white. That is read in chapter 14 of the same, the original Hebrew, into an English's simile that was then redacted during transliteration to read now as a quote, cloud, C-L-U-D, cloud, that should have been printed by Robert Barker, his printing press in England, and in English to read as a quote, crowd, C-R-O-W-D, that doubles up the vowel U, the same meaning, to signify they doubled up. See, double up the U to signify that there are twice as many of you, of my people, my own people of Judah today, that were back then than there were back then in Jerusalem over 2,020 years ago. So you should have doubled the U and taken the L out and put the R for the righteous and the royal of Judah, the royal priesthood. The R, no L. The L is for lying, you liars. No C-L-O-U-D. You got my people looking up in the cloud for Jesus. You were looking up in the cloud, Jesus lie. It's a crowd, C-R-O-W-D, or C-R-O-U-D, U-W, you double up the quantity and the census of my people, the population, right here in the United States and in the Caribbean islands, the Caribbean, who also became symbolic in chapter 15 and verse 2. You can make a note of that. The same group, the same people, the same crowd of white people, white wearing gowns and hoods and head wraps and robes, black skin, the white clouded people, became symbolic in chapter 15 and verse 2 as a sea of glass of the same people. That's another crypto that you cannot comprehend or understand. I'm going to reveal that soon. Sea of glass. Needless to say, some of the sea of glass is right now watching. Some of it, they put a G there instead of a C. It's a sea of glass. Needless to say, but I'm going to. And although this he of Revelation chapter 5, verse 1 has his own throne, this verse 1 of Revelation chapter 5 did not specify that he is now sitting on his throne. In fact, how can he be? When the book that he sat on the throne had not yet been opened. and or the seven seals had not yet been loosed. So how can he be sitting on his own throne? In other words, this verse in verse 13, why? Because that throne is different from this throne. Let me go take a look. Let's take a look at that 5. Let us that while we are on that subject right now tonight of the different thrones. Turn to Zechariah chapter 6 and read with me. Read with us, all 7 of us, septuplets, starting at verse 12 of Zechariah chapter 6, so we can clear up something else while we're at it. Revelation chapter 5, verse 1 is a supplement that reads, as I quote, and speaking to him, see, that's another him, saying, see the comma? And speaking to him, comma, saying, comma, thus speaketh Yudhid of hosts, comma, saying, comma, behold, the man whose name is the branch, semicolon. That means something else is about to follow that's almost not related. And he shall grow up out of his place, comma. You got to pause. They put those commas there for a reason, and the semicolon for a reason, because they redacted a lot that's not there. So that's why I have to be here today to reveal it, to disclose it. Why? Because he shall build the temple of Yahweh. Stop. Okay. There are 2 things that we are going to bring to your attention again tonight that was a mystery for at least 40 years during this generation. That is as follows. The first thing of this verse is the appellation that's read here as branch, branch, in all caps. You know, of course, it's not a name, but rather it bears a meaning that reveals a process of what one will go through in a time of being raised by whom many are still calling, and I quote, Yahweh ben Yahweh, end quote. Within one generation that started in 1979 to this came from the original Hebrew word known as Sethmach, 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 spelled from right to left. Hebrew is read and written from right to left, opposite of English, which is written as read and spelled from left to right. So this Hebrew word, Sethmach, is spelled in Hebraic with 3 Hebrew symbols. This word means one who sprouted out of Judah, just as it reads in Hebrews chapter 7, verse 14. So make a note of that and read it. During a period of time and growth, and this growth period was performed by the Ab, his Ab, who took his power and placed it in a time warp that was processed by way of his celestial and omnipotent mind of erudition. As he took this one who was of Judas to suddenly shoot up in the earth, to then bear the appellation known as the Messiah from the Davidic tree, the Davidic tree of David, and the root of David that was signified by the same branch in Revelation chapter 22 and verse 16, as he said, I am the root and the offspring of David. So make a note of that and read it. That's the Davidic tree of David, of his place. And he shall build the temple of Yahweh, of God, Yahweh. The key is his place. Grow out of his place. Grow up out of his place. See, his place is where Udawafe sat him. That is now known as a suburb of Miami of Florida called, quote, Brownsville, end quote, which is the very same suburb of Miami of Florida where Udawafe first came to in Miami, when he came to Miami to hold our Wednesday nights class meetings and our Saturday Shabbats in a community center of Brownsville, a Brownsville Community Center. That's what it was called, the Brownsville Community Center. And those who are here today, who were back there then and still are here today, they know what I'm speaking of right now. They bear witness. Nevertheless, while this one grew in his place, he also built the temple of Udawafe at the same time, which is the very same temple that all seven angels are coming out of that we first revealed and disclosed last Sunday night as, and I quote, the temple of four bones, that's of the human skull, that is connected to the valley of dry bones of Ezekiel chapter 37. The temple of the human skull. Praise Yahweh. I pray that you're paying attention to this. In the meantime, and now with that said, revealed, let's go now to let's read verse 13 of Zechariah chapter 6, verse 13. And that says, even he shall build the temple of the Lord, Yahweh, semicolon, and he shall bear the glory, comma, and shall sit and rule upon his throne, semicolon, and he shall be a priest upon his throne, colon. You have a semicolon, and then you have, and he shall be a priest upon his throne, colon. Now that means that this particular sentence came from another place of the Old Testament. And we're going to show you where it comes from. He shall be a priest upon his throne. That continues to say, and the counsel of peace shall be between them both, period. See, this both represents the Father and the Son, the Ab and the Beth Nusofi, both. And notice that it reads again, he shall be a priest upon his throne, and not the throne. Why? Well, first of all, this promise, or the word of Yahweh, if you will, that was made and given to Israel, all of Israel, especially the tribe called Judah today by Yahweh, that reads in part, he shall be a priest. Again, quote, he shall be a priest, end quote. That 5-word quote, he shall be a priest, is found only in this verse of Zechariah chapter 6 and verse 13 of the King James Version Holy Bible, the entire Bible. This is the only place where it is found. That means that the English's word known as priest here, priest, P-R-I-E-S-T, it came from an original Hebrew word that was created by the third Hebrew symbol of the same priest's celestial name, which is Kaf. And is supported by the fifth symbol of the same name, which is He, that created the Hebrew word known today as Kohan. Kohan. Some may even pronounce it Kohen, of the second pronunciation. Nevertheless, it's spelled from right to left. That word, Kohen, is spelled from right to left. Kaf, He, Nusofi. That's the third Hebrew symbol and the fifth of the same priest's name. And this Hebrew word, Kohen, it means the principal officer or the chief ruler, as well as the priest king. And they also have in parentheses Melchizedek, Messiah. Now you can confirm this for yourself in your strong concordance or reference H 3548. That's 3548 H. H for Hebrew, the Hebrew Chaldean lexicon. Again, H 3548. Kohen. Now, this priest of Zechariah that's found here in Zechariah chapter 6 and verse 13 is the very same priest of Deuteronomy chapter 17. That's why they put a semicolon and gave you the introduction. And then they gave you the introduction, then they put a colon after it. So you can go to Deuteronomy chapter 17 to see who this priest is and his duty. And to see what the certain charges and commandments that was placed on his soul by his Yudawave, his God. His father, Yudawave. For example, part of those charges and commandments are read in a small passage of that book of Deuteronomy. In chapter 17, that begins at verse 14 and ends at verse 17. So we got to show you. I mean, there's no point of discussing it. We're here to share the truth and tell the truth. So take a look for a moment. Now you got a marker in two places. You should have a marker in Revelation chapter 5, and now we're probably done with Zechariah chapter 6. So we want you to go now to Deuteronomy chapter 17. And we're going to read, begin at verse 14. And I quote, as you read along with us, I quote that says, "When thou art come unto the land which the Lord thy God, Yudawave, giveth thee, comma, and shall possess it." I'm not going to mention the commas, you can read it and see. "And shalt dwell therein, and shalt say, I will set a king over me, like as all the nations that are about me, that are round about, like this nation." Just how this nation did, and how they continue to do, of appointing or setting a king over them, known as a president, by ways of voting for a man, and at one time a woman or a female, and they called this man, once elected, president. In verse 15, "Thou shalt in any wise set him king over thee, whom the Lord thy God, Yudawave, shall choose. One from among thy brethren shalt thou set king over thee." And that was not Obama. It's because he was of African origin, of his father. That was not Obama, the first African American president of the United States of America. No, that was not him. Obama is not of Judah. Let's make that clear. As I continue, "Thou mayest not set a stranger over thee, like Trump, and the 10 before him, after you were given the right to vote in this country, which is not thy brother." See, Obama was not thy brother, neither is Trump. He's not thy brother. Verse 16, "But he shall not multiply horses to himself," the one that is appointed. This is a commandment. See, he shall not multiply horses to himself. Now, this horses is, of course, is symbolic to strong people of America to form his own sorority or club, nor cause the people to return to Egypt into bondage, to the end that he should multiply horses. or strong people. For as much as Yudawave has said unto you, ye shall henceforth return no more that way. Don't do it. Don't do as you used to do in Egypt, Yehuda Yahweh, Israel. Another commandment that he was given is in verse 17 that says, neither shall he multiply wives to himself, that his heart turn not away, as Solomon did. Neither shall he greatly multiply to himself silver and gold. He shall be redeemed without money. That's a commandment, and the God of the Hebrews makes sure that this commandment stays in the soul of this one whom he raised, that he do not become like Solomon. That's why he got upset and gets upset when the priest, those back in the days, you know what I'm speaking of, I bear witness, to become caught up in the filthy lucre, don't be caught up in those silver and gold, especially the filthy lucre of this nation's currency, etc. Let's go back to Zechariah for a moment. I think we made our point here of Deuteronomy chapter 17. Let's go back to Zechariah for a moment, chapter 6, where we left off at on this throne. See, his throne is a name known as Kaf, and is supported by the first Hebrew symbol known as Aleph, of which both created the Hebrew word known as Kissah, spelled from right to left, Kaf, Smek, Aleph. Reference concordance on the H 3678. Make a note, you'll find it. Strong's H 3678. And that word means Kissah. It means seat of honor, royalty, dignity, or royal dignity. The authority, that's found in Zechariah chapter 6 and verse 13 as his personal seat. Why? Why his personal seat? Well, I repeat, because the throne in this verse is his throne. Now go back to where you left your marker in Revelation chapter 5 and verse 1. And let us read that again, because some may have gotten lost by now and have forgotten the subject of this revelation. So we're going to read that again. Revelation chapter 5 and verse 1. And that reads as I quote again. And I saw in the right hand of him that sat on the throne a book written within and on the backside, sealed with 7 seals, period, end quote. Now, once again, we're going to actually pay attention. Pay very close attention to this. We're about to reveal. This throne is being called, quote, the throne, end quote, means that this is a certain throne in particular. In fact, this throne sealed an entirely different throne that was sealed, that no one knew the mystery of that throne. Even as many theologians and Bible scholars of the world throughout history, they thought that this throne of Revelation chapter 5, verse 1, is the same throne as Zechariah chapter 6 and verse 13. But it is not. Why? Because before the scrolls were redacted, remember? They were redacted by those European nations that we mentioned earlier. This throne of Revelation chapter 5, verse 1, that was printed by Robert Barker in 1611 in English as, quote, the throne, end quote, was sealed by the authority of the very same third angel known as Kaf, who carried the seal with him. Remember, we said all seven angels have their own seal. Some carry more than one seal. It was also carried by the twin of the fifth angel, who is the seventh angel, twin, identical, who's also known as He, the fifth Hebrew alphabet or symbol, as they both created the Hebrew word known as kasa. Kasa. It's spelled from right to left, kaf, smack, he. Kaf, smack, he. And that means, this Hebrew word means to cover, to conceal, and to hide, like with a veil over your mind, over your eyes. And this reference is in Strong's H 3680. As a reminder, 3680. And why else do you think the seven seals are known to be sealed today? By this word, kasa. Or did you hear what I just said? Oh, my. Let me say that again. I said this first verse of Revelation chapter 5 did not read that he sat upon his throne, like it was prophesied that he is to sit upon his throne in Zechariah that we mentioned. I want to make sure you know this. Because that throne, his throne, was sealed by the authority of the Hebrew word known as Kisah, spelled with Kaf, Smek, Aleph. Kaf, Smek, Aleph. And not Kaf, Smek, He, which is different. Reference Strong's 3678. See, one is Strong's 7678, and the other is Strong's 3680. You have 3678, and you have 3680, like two numbers apart. 3678 means the seat of honor, royalty or royal dignity, authority, and power. However, this verse of Revelation chapter 5, verse 1 sealed that he sat upon the throne, a book. Don't forget. Look at it again. He sat upon the throne, a book, etc. Or did you see that? Or did you miss that? See, if you missed that, then did you or do ye not find it kind of strange or out of the celestial order for this him to have sat upon his throne in all comfort with royal dignity and authority and power? And at the same time as he's sitting or sat, the children of Yudawavhe, whom Yudawavhe chose and elected, they're still sealed in the third seal of this same book in chapter 6. Now, why else do you think that someone wept much in the verse that's coming up that we are going to get to in a few minutes? Why? I mean, he wept much. But here's why: because the children were still sealed. And he couldn't find no one. He was not shown who was going to do it yet. So if your answer is yes, you missed it, well, praise you out here that you confessed. Because now we can show you based on your confession. Or do you at least think that it's strange that this priest is sitting down doing nothing, as the children of Uwafe are still in hell under this devil in the United States of America today? See, if this priest was sitting down doing nothing, then the children would stay in hell under Halel, also known as Lucifer, the serpent, the great dragon, that old serpent called the devil, the great dragon. Let's make America great again. Well, I assure you that he is not just sitting down doing nothing or sat on his throne. Why? Because Revelation chapter 5 and verse 1 has a book in it that was hidden under a Hebrew word that means that the Christ hid something by way to cover it up until the time of the end, even as he did that in order to conceal the strategy that he is going to use against the devil and his angels in a war, according to Revelation chapter 12, verse 7, as a way to hide from them their final destruction to be cast out, according to verse 9 of Revelation chapter 12, of how they're going to be destroyed, even as their world will also come to its end at the same time. And I also did that by placing all that I hid over their minds with a veil, even over the minds of my own people of Israel, beginning with Moses, placed a veil over that mind, over their eyes, over their hearts, and of Judah, who were all sleeping in the dust of the earth. Just like it said in Daniel chapter 12, verse 2, it will now allow my light to shine in the darkness of their minds, in your mind, the darkness of your mind, with the darkness of their minds, that will then enable ye, Abel, ye, as a resurrection of Abel, to see that this verse reads, quote, the throne, end quote. Why you think my wrote and left a book for you to read called The Resurrection of Abel, A-B-E-L, as also A-B-L-E. So you can see that this verse reads the throne and not his throne. And if you take another close look at this verse again and see this time real hard with your celestial sight of your mind, then you will also see what many thought to be him that sat on his throne. When reading this verse, is also read to have sat a book upon the throne that he had in his right hand. Or did you miss that too? Did you not see the book that he had in his right hand of the two? Could have had in the left, but the book is in the right hand. And the book also sat upon the throne with him, that sat as he sat. The book that was sealed with 7 seals sat as he sat. In other words, that sat, S-A-T, is not the same S-E-T, set, S-E-T, sat, sit, or set, that's found printed in Ezekiel chapter 37, verse 1. That is truly a supplement to Revelation chapter 14 and verses 14 and 15, as Yahuwah set the same one to be with his children in the valley of dry bones. So let's read that part again so you can keep up and not get confused, because Yahuwah is not the author of confusion, but of shalom, even shalom, shalom and shalom. But this time, when we read it, we're only going to read up to the first comma of Revelation chapter 5, verse 1. Only up to the first comma. Remember them? A comma, those that are known to be part of the English's punctuation marks. Remember them? Well, here's what you didn't know about the English's punctuation mark known as a comma. Look at one again, a comma. Go online and look it up. Google it and go to images. You're going to get a shock of your life to find out where they got that from, or where it comes from, what created the comma, the English's comma, punctuation mark, and why there's only one in Revelation chapter 5, verse 1, but there's several in other verses, as we read in Deuteronomy chapter 17. See, that comma resembles the Hebrew symbol known as Yud at the top. Yud at the top, the 10th Hebrew alphabet or symbol, that they then lowered to use to the bottom of their sentences, known in particular today as a plain and simple comma, COMMA. Or did you notice that? You know, the comma is the English's punctuation mark that is used in their grammar when a sentence is written or printed to indicate to the English's readers to take a slight pause, or is used to separate words and figures in a list of symbols or objects or numbers. Remember? Okay, since you remember, let's read Revelation chapter 5 and verse 1 again. Doing this one more again that we disclosed on Wednesday night, up to the first comma, the first and only comma. As I again read, quote, and I saw in the right hand of him that sat on the throne a book written within and on the backside, comma, stop. See? Did you notice how I read it? I read it according to how they redacted it with one comma. All those didn't even come up for air, a breath. And I saw in the right hand of him that sat on the throne a book written within and on the backside, comma. You know that don't make any sense. You know there's some commas that should have been placed. At least one should have been placed after him, or sat on a throne. At least one at the throne. See, it would sound more sensible in the grammar of reading by saying, and I saw in the right hand of him that sat on the throne, comma, a book, comma, written within, comma, and on the backside, comma. See, there should have been at least 3 more commas before that comma, but they didn't put it there. Why? Why is this your first and only comma of this verse? Or should I ask you, did you see this comma in your King James Version Holy Bible? Girl, did you see it? Or do your Bible have one comma in this verse that was placed there in the sentence where the noun throne, Throne, not Thrown for those who are not reading, Throne, throne, is read, that is hiding 3 of their words. See, you didn't even know that this throne is hiding 3 of their words, known as, I quote, the royal one, end quote. The royal one. TH with the missing, the R for royal, ONE, the royal one. They redacted that too. Even as the lone comma that was placed after the word backside, 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 and before the first English's alphabet and vowel known as A. Again, do you see the comma? If not, then we are encouraging you to go and change your Bible and go and grab a King James Version Holy Bible. Or if it reads King James Version Holy Bible on the front cover of the book you have, then we are encouraging you right now to take it back to Cecil, who has a book booth at the flea market where you purchase that Bible from. Take it back to him. Why? Because Cecil sold you a BB. I said Cecil sold you a BB. That stands for a bad Bible that he probably binded himself together as he worked in his garage on his laptop, his Office Max making printer. So take it back. If not, and if you have a very good King James Version Holy Bible, then your King James Version Holy Bible should have a comma after the word backside, BACKSIDE, and before the vowel A. So you should be asking, what does this mean, Mika Yahweh? Well, here's what it means. This means that before the soul of the one likened to the Son of Man, who also slept in his own seal, all seven, as he sat in his spirit of deep sleep, and I mean in gross darkness himself, he had a set of Hebrew scrolls in his right hand because he's right-handed. He writes right-handed. That was a total of 7 Hebrew scrolls. And these 7 Hebrew scrolls were written within the Hebrew idiom of the celestial throne of Yudwavhe, which is the throne of Yudwavhe and not a throne. And not only was this certain book that was sealed with 7 seals written within the throne of Yudwavhe, but this book that was sealed with 7 seals was also written by the power of that Beth Utab, reference H 1004 of your strong concordance. Beth, spelled Beth Utab, reference H 1004, that hid the householder of Matthew, chapter 20 and verse 1. Remember him from Wednesday night, even part 1, known as the Prince of Yudwafe's house. That means that this book was also written within the walls of his own house of Judah. And not only was this certain book that was sealed with 7 seals written within the whole house of the householder of Matthew chapter 20 and verse 1, but this book that was sealed with 7 seals was also written within the city that he dwelt in, like that city of Genesis chapter 18 and verse 24. And not only was this certain book that was sealed with 7 seals written within the city that this householder dwelt in, like that city of Genesis chapter 18 and verse 24, but this book that was sealed with 7 seals was also written within the time of those 3 branches of a dream that Yosef interpreted as 3 days when Pharaoh wanted to hang Yosef on a tree, just as it reads in Genesis chapter 40 and verses 11, 12, and 19. Read that and see. And not only was this certain book that was sealed with 7 seals written within those 3 days when Pharaoh wanted to hang Yosef on a tree, but this book that was sealed with 7 seals was also written within the veil that was hung up under the Koresh, that is of the ark of this testimony, and before the mercy seat that divides the holy places from the most holy places, just as it reads in Exodus chapter 26 and verse 33, and Leviticus chapter 16 and verse 2. And not only was this certain book that was sealed with 7 seals written within that veil that was hung up under the Koresh, that is of the ark of this testimony, and before the mercy seat that divides the holy places from the most holy places, but this book that was sealed with 7 seals was also written within the space of a full year, just as it reads in Leviticus chapter 25 and verse 30. And not only was this certain book that was sealed with 7 seals written within the space of a full year, but this book that was sealed with 7 seals, also written within thy gates, was written within thy gates, Israel and Judah. That's where it was written within too, thy gates. But before he left thy gates, before the same one left thy gates, Judah, the cities of the south that were shut up, and none opened them, they were within your own cities of the south that were shut up, and none opened them. Just as it reads in Leviticus chapter 26 and verse 25, and Jeremiah chapter 13, verse 19. The very same man who sealed the book of 7 seals that became one book that set the group of 7 scrolls down on the throne of Yudawabhe. Why? Because that was the order. That was the order that was placed on him by Yudawabhe, even today, before he was to sit on his throne, his own throne. Why? Because originally, that particular throne was also handwritten by the authority, remember, of the third Hebrew symbol of his name, again, as a reminder, which is Kaf, as well as the Hebrew twins known as He, both that are of this man's celestial name. Remember, that was sealed by the authority of the Hebrew word known as Kasa, spelled Kaf, Samek, He, reference H3680, to cover, to conceal, to hide, to cover oneself, and to clothe oneself, just to name a few. So that means when reading this verse one more again, of Revelation chapter 5, then here is a mystery solved of this prophetic cryptogram that sealed the following. As I quote, here's how I should have read before it was redacted. And I saw in the right hand a book of 7 scrolls that were written within the original Hebrew idiom of him, that's comma, of him that set the book on the throne of Yudawabhe, comma, and on the backside, comma, the same book was translated and printed in a different idiom known as English, comma, but still sealed with 7 seals, period, end quote. Now I have unredacted it. I have loosed it. I've loosed verse 1 that was sealed of Revelation chapter 5. In other words, each seal today has become a chapter. And the name of the book of those seals is called, quote, the Book of Micah, end quote, today. And on the backside of this book, in chapter 1 of the book called Micah, in verse 1, Micah Yahweh is now being called, quote, Morithite, the Morithite, end quote. I repeat, the 33rd book of the King James Version Holy Bible that's called, quote, the Book of Micah, end quote, is the very same book that bared 7 Hebrew scrolls that first started going through its transliteration and transliterated stages from Hebrew into English by a group of Greek theologians that subsequently fell into the hands of 47 English theologians of King James I during the 16th century, as those 7 scrolls then made their way in the early 17th century in 1611 to the printing press of one Robert Barker, who was the printer of King James I. And that is the report of why they are now read in the English's idiom today. Got that? All you false prophets, you forgot. Just because you read English, you think the book was written or printed in English by someone. From the front side that was originally drafted within the Hebraic idiom, But as they went through the exchanging of hands of the backside of the Gentiles of Europe, who transferred one language to the next language during a process of time from 1530, even under Queen Elizabeth I, in 1568, would keep the scrolls separate to maintain them being divided into 7 chapters, just as they were sealed with 7 seals by the original Mem, the first seal. Now read verse 2 of Revelation chapter 5 to see what Mem shouted after he commanded Daniel to seal the book. After he showed Zechariah and Daniel a few cryptos that came out of this book, that's a supplement to Zechariah, the whole book called Zechariah. Verse 2 says, "And I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice, comma, who is worthy to open the book, comma, and to loose the seals thereof, question mark." See the difference in verse 2 with the punctuation marks? Although they gave you the answer at the same time by saying who is. Verse 3, "And no man, no, not one, no man in heaven, comma, nor in earth, comma, neither under the earth, even Aquaman couldn't do it, comma, was able to open the book, comma, neither to look thereon, period." Verse 4, "And I wept much, comma, why? Because no man was found worthy to open and to read the book, comma, neither to look thereon." I mean, how could they? No wonder he wept much. Couldn't even read it, even by the help and with the help of those 7 elders of the tribe called Dan. Verse 5 says, "And one of the elders," see, the elders were there. "One of the elders said unto me, comma, weep not." Probably even gave him some tissue to wipe his face, handkerchief, a towel to drop his tears. "Weep not." Why? "Behold, comma, the Lion of the tribe of Judah," verbatim, comma, "the root of David." See, we made that clear too a few moments ago. The root of David, Daviek, "had prevailed to open the book, hath prevailed, comma, and to loose the 7 seals thereof, period, end quote. See, not only does the book have to be opened, but also the seals have to be loosed. So what does that mean? Some may be asking. Well, the answer to that question, if you're asking that question, is Yudawavhe gave these 7 seals to one, according to Revelation chapter 1 and verse 1. You can read that on your own. And just to reiterate, we said for the past 2 weeks that the first verse of Revelation chapter 1, verse 1, which is the first of 404 that we mentioned earlier of the 22 chapters of this book, Revelation, are all cryptic. This means that the original and true title of the Hebrew scrolls that were translated by those whom we mentioned earlier, as are many theologians of Greece, of Europe, of England, that were told of Germany, that were told by Hebrew Israelite elders. See, what they saw the scrolls to be Sefer She Bakatham, that means the book of the 7 seals. And no one except whom Yudawavhe gave these 7 seals to, Sefer Sheikh Bakatham, no one can do it. As you just read in Revelation chapter 5, verse 5, was able to open, to loose, to reveal, disclose, and then explain all 7 of these seals of this book, just as we just confirmed in chapter 5 again. Now, with that said, let us say again this week that we're going to proclaim this book, even for thousands of years now. We're going to confirm it and we're going to explain it. Remaining seals. So what we're going to do, we're going to actually do, as we also bring to your attention to remind you that the first seal is also the final seal, mem Sophie. Mem Sophie. The first shall be, the last shall be first, the first last. Make a note, Matthew chapter 20 and verse 16. We also want you to know as a reminder from chapter 1, from Revelation chapter 6 and verse 1, that this same loud voice of an angel of chapter 5 verse 2 is the same loud voice of the angel out of the temple. Even the one of Revelation chapter 5 verse 2 and chapter 14 verse 2. Same loud voice. And this temple, as a reminder, is of the angel's frontal bone, the angel's parietal bone of the skull, the temporal bone, and the sphenoid bone, sphenoid, all are found behind the right eye of his temple. Praise the warfare. Now, what we're going to ask you to do before we close, as we now, tonight, I'm going to put those laborers to work that were hired this past Wednesday night, whose work detail requires them to thrust in thy sickle, as it says in Revelation chapter 14, verse 15, and reap the harvest of this wheat with their own sickle. Yehudi Yahweh, with your own sickle. Those who were hired, just as I mentioned, that this harvest is a field of wheat, 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 and barley, BARLEY, during last Sunday night's pre-session. So you have a sickle. That is a certain kind of a sickle in a field. Remember, or do you remember? At least remember that the pay of these laborers is only a penny a day. Your pay is only a penny a day now. And this penny is what they are now about to get paid with as I now put them to work for their labor. That is read in Revelation chapter 6 and verse 6. So we're going to read that. Revelation chapter 6, verse 6. And that reads, as I quote, and I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, comma, a measure of wheat for a penny, comma, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, semicolon. And see thou hurt not the oil and the wine, period, end quote. Now, did you notice in this verse 6 of Revelation chapter 6 that this voice was not loud? Why? You don't want to wake up the wrong people. So you gotta shh. You don't want to wake up the wrong people. So this voice is not as loud. It's not loud as the other 2 angels' voices. Remember? Not loud. So shh. While some are still sleeping the dusty earth. And we want to tell you, see why they're sleeping. Here's what we're going to tell you. These 4 beasts are inanimate. See, again, these 4 beasts are inanimate. Spelled INANIMATE. Inanimate. This means inorganic or non-living, like a wild animal that many, if not all of you false prophets that are watching this video, all of you thought it was that type of beast, a wild animal. That means that these four beasts are symbolic. That represents those four bones of the temple that I just mentioned, as well as Judah, who are the B for Beth Nun Sophie and Bath Nun Sophie. The B is for Beth Nun Sophie and Bath Nun Sophie. That means the son of and the daughters of, the sons of and the daughters of Yudwafeh, who are found in John chapter 1 and verse 12, because they believe on the name of the Christ, who are all from the east, E-A-S-T. That's B, Beth, Bath, E-A-S-T. You put that together, you place the B with the east, then you get beasts, B-E-A-S-T-S, in plural. It's more than one. Now, this penny, P-E-N-N-Y, is a parable of one word that we mentioned and revealed on this past Wednesday night in part 1 of this revelation. That is also joined with a suffix known as ni, N-Y. Remember, we went over this in part 1. That's P-E-N for pen, and then the ni that's added, a suffix, N-Y, to get penny. And we reveal that as an 8 in Hebrew. The Hebrew word known as 8, reference H, 5842, 8. Now, tonight, in this part, let us reveal this wheat. See, as many even thought that this wheat represented people. I don't know how you thought that, and you couldn't even read the book. How you thought it was people, and you couldn't even read the book, even look at it. So how did you loose it? How did you loose it to become a wheat of people? It was sealed. Did you just read with us Revelation chapter 5, verse 5? No one can do it except the lion of the tribe called Judah. So how you made it a wheat of people, a field wheat of people? This wheat, W-H-E-A-T, is also inanimate. It's not alive of lives of people. Why? Because it was sealed as a parable that came from the original Hebrew word known as 8, spelled ayin teth. Again, reference H, 5842. Although this Hebrew word was stolen by the Greeks and had you thinking it was a wheat field of people, but it was created from their own. They created from their own word, Greek's word known as kelamos, of their Strong's G2563 reference. But it came from the original. See, they redacted that. They came from the original Hebrew 8, ayin teth. That means, and I quote, a measuring reed or rod, a writer's reed, also known as a pen, an ink pen, P-E-N. Now you can refer to Revelation chapter 11, verse 1, as we're going to actually do right now. Turn to Revelation chapter 11, verse 1. And that reads in Revelation chapter 11, Revelation 11, 1, quote, and there was given me a reed like unto a rod, a pen, P-E-N. And the angel stood, saying, rise, Yehuda Yahweh, and measure, M-E-A-S-U-R-E, make me a sure temple of Yudawaveh. And the altar, A-L-T-E-R, as we alter all of those lies and redactions that they did. A-L-T-E-R, not A-L-T-A-R. Well, how are you going to put a pen on an altar? What you going to do? Just leave it up there and measure it? No, use your pen and measure those and them that worship therein. They're already inside the temple and your mind. Now, take your pen, your 8, and spell wheat, W-H-E-A-T, on your paper from left to right, W-H-E-A-T. And separate the W, the double U, as you have doubled And even one is with you of the three, the barley, three measures. We're not going to go deep into the barley, but we're giving you the wheat. Separate the double U, which you look at as W, that they took, it was created from the Wab of Hebrew, Wab, the sixth Hebrew alphabet, and the mark of protection, the Wab, protection, six, Wab. It also protects my soul, and the souls of the chosen and the elect of the Wab. Wab. Now you should be left with heat, Heat, in the field, as you thought was a field. I don't see field in this verse of Revelation chapter 6, verse 6. Where you get field from? Just because I said you're going to go out into the field? Well, do you feel me? I pray you feel me. But you're left now with wheat, with heat. And since you removed the protection, the W, now separate the two vowels, because there are no vowels in Hebrew, but separate them as they have translated them into English to get Heat. Separate the E and the A. You should have he and the Hebrew word known as eight. That means pen, like an ink pen. And when you do, then you'll find out that all of those who are protected under Wab are also here with he that has a pen of one measure of he. He's only one measure. One man, measure me and make sure that it's me with your ink pen. Now you must measure your own with your own pen by writing to those who come to the temple, as well as your temple in your mind, Yehuda Yahweh. Praise you to Wafhe for that revelation. Wheat. I don't see field in my Bible. Where you get field from? Anyway, we want to take this moment right now and thank you for joining us tonight during this part 2 of A Measure of Wheat for a Penny. Never done before. Praise the Wafhe. With that said, again, thank you for joining us, and we're going to bring you another video of part 3 soon, so stay tuned and monitor. For now, we're going to go into our editorial on our teleconference line, and if you want to join us, if you have a question or you have a testimony you'd like to share, question to ask, then dial this number, 831-221-6177. You can also join us every Wednesday evening at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, and Sunday nights like tonight at 7 o'clock Eastern Time for our teleconference pre-sessions. We may not always be on live stream or YouTube, so call in. We'll make announcements periodically on the day of on Facebook, at least Facebook. Once again, Toda, I am your host, Mem Yud Kafi Wavhe, Mika Yahweh. Shalom Aleichem. Ani Ahab to my people of Israel. Ani Ahab, I love you forever. You're Ab, your God, you Wavhe, who art in heaven. He loves you. Ani Ahab. And so do I again. Shalom Aleichem. But for those who are now on